Howdy do, everybody. Today we are going to do a review of a book, my very first book review actually. It is called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert, and it is all about creativity. Hi, I'm Rick Higgins. Welcome to The Pirate Wanderer. Today we are going to talk about a book which I found compelling, interesting, and just amazing to read. And I would show it to you, but my Kindle is being, well, my Kindle today, so I can't even show you the cover. But she is the author of Eat, Love, Pray, something like that. I hope I got the 3 words right. And she is a #1 bestseller of this book called Big Magic. Now, I will throw a little caveat out there right away. I do not know Elizabeth, but if you know Elizabeth, you can have her call me, and then I will know Elizabeth. But if you're watching Elizabeth, love the book. So what's it about? Is it a self-help book? No, not at all. It's sort of more of a conscious stream of thought of a creative process. And I've also listened to some podcasts that she's done and done some TED Talks about the same sort of subject. What Brene Brown is to vulnerability, it seems like she is to creativity. So she's my new hero. Her very first theme is called fear, and it was interesting to read. Apparently, as she was growing up, fear was a very large part of her childhood, a very big imaginary friend of hers. Now, I don't quite share that same fear gene, but I do understand it. She had this story which I found really interesting, is you can't get rid of fear. At least she could not get rid of her fear. So what she decided to do was go on a road trip. She decided to pack the car with fear, creativity, and herself. But there were rules. Fear could come along. Fear was more than welcome to come along because, honestly, this is me speaking, by the way, a little fear makes things interesting. A little fear makes things exciting. If you have no fear, and what's the use? It's just you're doing something, that thrill of it. So you bring fear along on her road trip, but there are rules, like I say. The rules are fear doesn't get to pick the snacks, fear doesn't get to pick the radio station, and fear definitely doesn't get behind the wheel. But other than that, he's perfectly welcome along on the road trip. I think that is her way of sort of suggesting that fear is a part of life. You have to use it with creativity, and it kind of balances each other out. But fear can never be allowed to win. It's just kind of there to make sure you don't fall off a cliff. All right, she told a story, and I don't know if this was in the podcast or if it was in the book, and I actually had it written on this board behind me for a little while because it just cracked me up. Dolphins and Otters. She was talking about writers, but I can assume you can do this with YouTubers, anybody else. You could take a dolphin and you could train it. You could say, here, do this trick. Here's a fish. You come along tomorrow, you give them the fish. The dolphin is going to do the trick over again. And I guess she was sort of making the analogy to some writers who maybe they only do romance novels or they only do sci-fi or they have a very narrow niche. And they'll just keep chugging these books out. And they're very successful. I am sure they're very happy. They're dolphins. Now, you take an otter and you show him a trick and you give him a fish and you come back the next day and you hand him another fish and he's just going to eat it. You can't train an otter. And that's me. And that I reread or re-listened, whatever it was I did to that over and over and over because I find that part fascinating. The reason I'm struggling with my YouTube channel, for instance, is because I don't want to have a niche. I want to be able to kind of do what I want to do and do the next creative thing. I don't want to just write another book of Sherlock Holmes. She did have this other story, and I'm trying to figure out how it has to do with creativity in the artistic sense per se, but it was more of making something of yourself with yourself. She was discussing a friend of hers that when she was a child was a figure skater and went through the whole, I'm going to be an Olympian, wake up at 4 a.m. and skate, yada, yada, yada. Later, she gave it up. Later on in life, she decided to pick it up again. But she decided to pick it up for a different reason, because she enjoyed it. It was something that she could do and do creatively well. She was using her body herself, and it had no end. It wasn't a project that says, I'm going to build this lovely designed thing and then move on. It was just a continuous project using herself and using her creativity. And I really like that because I think you can combine them. You can create a project, you can create an idea, but at the same time, the creative life, being creative, continues on and on and on. And so I love that story that she told because it inspired me and made me want to continue to figure skate well into the years when I can't. Okay, which takes me to a side path. She calls it creative living. I call it being Rick. I had no idea that I was doing this. Her idea of creative living is just living creatively. I did it and I was calling it adventure and exploration. And what it means is being curious, always asking questions, always looking what if, how is, and finding something new, finding something new and novel to pop into your brain. So when she put a label on it, creative living, I don't know if I want to put that on my business card, but I understand the concept, and it's something I have always done and always wanted to do, and I had no idea that I was doing it. And apparently it turns out that, I might be creative after all. Okay, there was one part in there in the book, and this was in the book, not the podcast. It's called The Trickster. And the Trickster, by the way, is a good person, not a bad person. And I don't know how to describe the Trickster. I really don't. It's one of those things that as I read it, I went, I understand, but it bypassed the part of my brain where words are formed, and it just sort of settled into where knowledge is known. So give me a second. I want to read this to you. The Trickster says, "You are welcome to die for your cause if you really want to, but I'm not here to spend my life suffering." See, the Trickster is represented in world mythology as the fox, the crow, the coyote, the monkey, and it sees through the delusions of seriousness. She goes on to say that this is the path that says creativity is a weird but never boring dance, and that you are allowed to actually enjoy it, regardless of how it turns out. This is the path that focuses more on the wonderful strangeness of the process and less on the result. Now, if you're like me, you're going, that makes sense, but I don't think I could turn around and tell the guy next to me what she just said. But I think what I take away from it is that I should stop being so damn serious. Creativity is not about mass marketing. It is not about following a tried and true formulaic path. It is be less serious, have fun, plan on making mistakes. I don't know, the word trickster I think is what's throwing me off. I understand it intuitively, that I shouldn't take myself and my craft and my creativity seriously, that limits it somehow. But I don't know how the word trickster plays in. But anyway, I highly recommend, get the book, read it. Get a Kindle that works better than mine. I think you will truly enjoy it. And if you don't like to read and you don't have a library nearby, fire up your laptop and she has some TED Talks. And I know she has several podcasts. She has a regular podcast actually on creativity. Give her a listen. I really highly recommend her. I really enjoy her. And if you want to continue to hone or to explore, to learn about your own creative self, I think she's got a lot to tell you.